everybody to the 2021 Middle School Speech Contest. We are so excited that we actually get to do this in person. At the beginning of the year, when Tara and I were kind of planning, we were very nervous that we might have to do this over Zoom. And so we are thankful that we get to do it here in person. So a couple housekeeping things. I think that's my role. Right here is just silence your cell phones if you have them on, if you could do that for us. And then also, if you can, while we're here in the building, same with the students here, let's keep our masks on when we are not up here speaking. So at this time, I want to go ahead and introduce Tara Kristen, who put all of this together for us. She is a teacher at Northwood Middle School, and then we will go ahead and get started. So Tara, come on up.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the 2021 Middle School Speech Contest. Again, my name is Tara Kristen, and this is my 14th year teaching and coaching speech for FWCS. This is my 9th year as the Middle School Speech Coordinator for the district, and I'm so glad we're able to hold our contest this year. Congratulations to all of these contestants who've made it this far, and good luck today. So to start with, I want to introduce our fantastic panel of judges behind you. First off is Amelia Flager. Amelia works in the curriculum assessment and instruction as the curriculum coordinator for high ability and fine arts. She's been in the district for 13 years, and during this time, she was a judge for the Southside High School speech team. She enjoys reading and spending time with her family. Please welcome Amelia Flager. Next, we have Linda Dare. Linda is the former coordinator of FWCS Middle School Contest. She taught language arts, speech, and drama at Memorial Park Middle School, taught composition at IPFW, and coached Memorial Park Middle School speech team, as well as directed plays at Memorial Park Middle School. She's currently investing in real estate. Please welcome Linda Dare. Our final judge is Matt Schiebel. Matt Schiebel's been with FWCS for 33 years and also attended as a student himself. He's been a middle school science teacher, an assistant principal at Lane, and the principal of Northwood, Shawnee, and Kikianga middle schools. He currently supports FWCS middle and high school principals as a director for secondary education. Please welcome Matt Schiebel. And finally, our MC for the speech contest, Cookie Rutledge. Cookie worked at FWCS for 33 years. She was a middle school language arts teacher for 29 years and a high school assistant speech coach for 8 years. Cookie loves this competition and is honored and a bit intimidated to be following the iconic Dr. Betty Stein in this capacity. Please welcome our MC for this year, Cookie Rutledge.
Thank you for the opportunity to serve as mistress of ceremony for this afternoon. This responsibility belonged to the iconic Dr. Betty Stein. This was her pet project in the district, and she made sure that
put
it
this
was
on the front of your sweater, so can you move your hair back and
Let
then
me recount the story as she told it. Originally, this contest was taking place in school buildings without any fanfare or recognition.
so you don't have to.
Dr. Betty knew
put your
what
hair back,
to
and
do.
that'll be the same
She
thing
phoned the
like that.
superintendent's wife and said, I quote, "Talk to your husband about these wonderful students and their hard work. Tell him that they need special recognition, just like you give the athletes," end quote. What? Give students in academic endeavors the same recognition that we give athletes? Now that's novel. So as I was told by Dr. Stein, this wife of the superintendent influenced her husband, and the next speech contest was held in the ground board room, where it remained for years. About 3 years ago, we moved it to this beautiful facility. Each year, we would watch Dr. Betty Stein preside over this contest with unusual grace and elegance. It is only fitting that we all recognize her this day and say,
I'm gonna have to
Betty
turn around
Stein,
when it's your
we
time,
miss
okay,
you,
so just-
and we thank you for the example you've set for all of us who stand on your shoulders. Let's give her applause. And now we will hear from our first speaker on the topic gender dysphoria.
Riddle me this. What happens when 334 linguists gather in a stuffy lecture hall on a Friday night to debate the lexical trends of the year? Well, they become the heroes of the new gender revolution. That's what happened at the 2016 annual meeting of the American Dialect Society, where members anointed the singular noun, gender neutral pronoun, as the word of the year. They as in, they equals shirt. They being used for, let's say, a person who does not identify as male or female. According to Black's Medical Dictionary, gender dysphoria occurs in 1 in every 30,000 male births and 1 in every 100,000 female births. Gender dysphoria roughly translates to one's dissatisfaction with their identity, their gender identity. Nearly 2% of high school youth identify as transgender, and roughly a third of them have attempted suicide. Now, I know suicide is a touchy subject, but it's a crucial topic because suicide is one of the leading causes of transgender death. According to the CDC, compared to cisgendered peers, the nearly 2% who identify as transgender face higher rates of victimization, substance abuse, and suicidal thoughts. From previous and similar studies, on the other hand, it is shown that 27% of the high school students feel unsafe going and leaving school. And 35% are physically and verbally bullied for being who they are. According to Don Ennens, the Trevor Project hosted the largest survey of transgender and non-binary youth that states that more than 55% have seriously considered suicide. This is why teens need to be heard and uplifted instead of being torn down for just what? Expressing themselves and using different pronouns? In fact, 30% of transgender teens can't even use a bathroom that they prefer. That percent is still increasing. In the case of Danny, a high school student, he states that he sees that everyone has a problem with the bathrooms. He uses the bathroom that is assigned gender. Hold on. He said, I feel like everyone has a problem with the bathrooms. I use the bathroom during class instead of in between because there's less of a chance of running into someone. He still uses the bathroom of assigned gender because that's the rule at his school. And he does this thing when he walks in. If there's someone at the sink, he walks really fast with his head down. Or if someone is outside of the bathroom, he stays in the stall until they leave. He even says that he got hit with a purse once because a girl thought he was a boy. And he thought it was fair, but where's he supposed to go? I've experienced this firsthand because since 2017, I've been struggling with my gender. And since early 2019, I've been experimenting with different pronouns like he, him, or they, them. And it's hard to use pronouns on yourself. So I had to go to my friends. Now, I am a lucky one from the few transgender teens that do have supportive friends, a few at least. And I was super happy and felt super included when my friends started using they, them pronouns for me. But all of that happiness and inclusivity disappeared when I went home. Because I put myself in a box where I had to grit my teeth at every she that was targeted my way. Now, there are over 100 pronouns in the English language. Over 100 words to describe me, you, them. And some people feel a disconnect between their gender that they were assigned at birth and the gender that they feel is their identity. And this can cause extreme distress. And we've spent over 100 years fitting people into a binary of entirely male or female. And there are over 100 stories of people that feel uncomfortable and, frankly, out of place in their own body. As a society, we are used to asking if a newborn baby is a boy or a girl, but not yet used to asking each other if we go by he, she, or they pronouns. Well, hi, I'm Lex, and I use they, them pronouns.
Thank you so much. What I've always appreciated about the speech contest is that it allows our young people to really reflect and to talk about things that are happening in our lives. And I so appreciate the courage that each one of them takes. I think all of you know that when there's research that's been done, when they've asked people what is the worst thing that could ever happen to you, it has been said that the worst thing that could happen is to be asked to give a speech in front of individuals. So as you listen to these young people today, I want you to know how courageous they are, and why don't we just give them right now some encouragement and let them know we know they're special. Having said that, let's talk a little bit about the journey that they've taken in order to make it to this point. First of all, sometime in second semester, they had to select a speech topic. And you know, although that may not seem like very much to some of you, it is extremely important, because we encourage our students to deal with a topic that's important to them, that's meaningful in their lives. After they've selected the topic, then they have to select arguments to support their topic. Now, most of us have these conversations where we say, well, my opinion is, in this contest, it doesn't matter what your opinion is, it matters if your opinion can be backed up with supportive and substantive information. And so these students actually had to go through that process. While I will tell you more about this process after we hear from our second very capable speaker, who will speak to us on the legal voting age.
Imagine this. You're paying for your first car with money you have earned from your job. You're paying your first taxes to our government, but you can't vote. Why? Because people think you're an immature 16-year-old. Less than 20% of 18-year-olds who voted in the 2016 election don't have a high school diploma, whereas more than 48% of 75-year-olds and older who voted in the 2016 election also don't have a high school diploma. So the question is, if adults who don't have high school diplomas can vote, then why can't 16-year-olds, who probably have the same education as they do, be treated equally? 16-year-olds should be allowed to vote because they are more intellectually advanced than 16-year-olds when the voting age was set. They are permitted by law to do more adult things, and there should be no taxation without representation. Nowadays, 16-year-olds are more intellectually advanced than 16-year-olds when the voting age was set. When the Constitution was made in 1787, the voting age was set to 21. This is because in the 1700s and leading into the 1800s, people did not have the best education because of how expensive it was to send someone to school. Information from Statista.com, a statistic database website, shows that in 1970, when the voting age was lowered to 18, 52% of high school students graduated, and only about 11% went to college and actually got a degree. The latest statistics from 2019, educational attainment from 1960 to 2019, show that over 90% of high school students graduated and 36% went to college and got a degree. Education over the years is continuing to grow as well as the average IQ. According to the Austrian National Election Study, where they have lowered the voting age to 16, 16 and 17-year-olds were more likely to vote than older voters. And results from the 2017 elections in Austria show, quote, a greater level of politicization and high salience that might have mobilized all voters, young and old alike, resulting in an increase of turnout. These results have shown up in other places where they have lowered the voting age. Furthermore, 16-year-olds can do many adult things, but voting is not one of them. The legal driving age in the United States and Canada is 15, but you have to be 16 to get your driver's license. The youngest age you can get a job varies, but the average would be 14. Once you get a job, you have to pay taxes depending on your rate, and it is illegal not to. It is legal to move out when you are 16 with parental consent, and according to the Spruce.com, you can even get married when you are 16. To vote is the indicated choice between 2 or more candidates or courses of action. But apparently, 16-year-olds can't even do that. They can drive, they can get a job, they can pay taxes, they can even move out when they are 16. But they cannot vote for the better of our country. Similarly, there should be no taxation without representation. Information from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics show that over 50% of 16-year-olds through 24-year-olds have jobs. Once you have a job, you have to pay taxes. Those taxes are going towards the government, but people who are paying taxes and have jobs don't get a say in what happens with those taxes. You are voting for the candidate that will do something with those taxes. Therefore, not allowing them to vote is diminishing their voices, and their voices need to be heard. Now, many adults look at 16-year-old kids and say, they're not responsible enough, they play too many video games, they are uneducated on political topics. But if that's true, then 16-year-olds who are playing too many video games, are irresponsible, and aren't educated enough, are probably not going to show up to vote. But others might if given the chance. With all this to say, I put forward that we need to lower the voting age to 16. 51 years ago, 18-year-olds wanted to vote. They were out in the streets protesting. 5 decades later, 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds want that too. We are going towards the future. This is our future generation, and we want to lead them for the better. And in the words of Roald Dahl, somewhere inside of us all is the power to change the world. Thank you.
Well, I'm convinced, let them vote. Okay? I love that argument. No taxation without representation. So you see, I was talking about the journey that these young people have taken, that they've selected a topic, and that they've had to give supporting arguments, and how wonderfully we've just seen it demonstrated in the 2 speeches that we have. Also, those students have to put this into a structure. There has to be a beginning, there has to be a middle with those arguments in it that support that topic. And then there has to be a compelling ending to that, with the strongest argument coming at the very end. The conclusion pulls everything together and hopefully supports everything that the young speaker has been saying. So what happens at the school level? They're classroom competitions. Every student in the class has written a speech. Every student in the class gets up and gives that speech. And then one student from each classroom is then put into the school competition. And then after the school competition, after they've had all of the school competitions, then the winner is announced. And that winner is the person or the individuals that you see before you right now. With that having been said, we're ready for our third competitor, who is going to speak to us on cell phone revolution. Can you hear me now?
Oklahoma, Mokanana, an author and philosopher from South Africa, once said, "People who smile when they are alone used to be called insane, until we invented smartphones and social media. Cell phones can be used for emergencies, work, or connecting with people all around the world. Therefore, cell phones are a significant scientific invention, and they have changed the world. To begin with, cell phones can be used for emergencies. Emergencies can happen any day, at any time, and you may not be around somewhere to get immediate help. However, according to 911.gov, all wireless devices, even those not subscribed to or supported by a specific carrier, can call 911. Additionally, in the article written for the National Kidney Foundation, smartphones come equipped with an emergency contact as well as a medical history feature called Medical ID. This nifty tool allows anyone who comes into contact with your phone when you're unresponsive to quickly learn your basic medical history as well as your preferred emergency contact. This means that cell phones have a way, whenever you're in danger, someone can quickly get into your phone and get you medical help. This can save lives. Isn't that amazing? Besides being used for emergencies, cell phones also help people stay connected with family or friends all around the world. Pew Research Institute says, in regards to cell phones, communication is much more efficient. you are no more interconnected with relatives or world affairs. Cell phones now make it possible to connect with other people from other countries, states, or cities. People can now communicate by simply calling, texting, or even FaceTiming each other. As it says in the small business news website, cron.com, social media may help some shy people increase their social interactions. For some shy people, social media provides the first step to meet people face to face. With that said, cell phones are good to use to help stay connected with family or friends all around the world. Cell phones aren't just good for emergencies. They have many work uses such as keeping a reminder, emailing work information, or helping make things like presentations. The article, What is the Role of a Cell Phone in Communication Today, states a Samsung study showed that the business leaders found their companies gain an average of 58 minutes of work time each day thanks to smartphone use. This means that cell phones have been working more than they've ever have. Some people may say cell phones are not useful because they are a distraction. However, according to Pew Research Center, 64% of students say they have texted during class and 25% have made or taken a phone call. However, according to Learning Technologies done by mobile phones, may help some students lift up and may even give them a greater passion for a school course. Cell phones can be a way for students to gain interest in a subject or a project. We may even pay attention. In conclusion, cell phones have changed the world since their invention. Cell phones can be used for emergencies, work, or connecting with people all around the world. They may seem like a distraction to some, but cell phones are so much more than just tools for texting or calling people. So the next time you use your phone, remember, cell phones are the most significant invention of the century. Thank you.
That being said, have you been tempted to look at your cell phone sometime during the past few minutes? Could be a little bit of cell phone addiction also. So let's talk about the end of that journey. I was talking about the journey that these young people have made to get here today. And one of the things that I didn't say is that this journey takes weeks of preparation on the parts of the language arts teachers and of course the coaches at the various schools. And with that having been said, I'd like for the coaches, please, of these young people to please stand. All of the coaches, and let's give them a hand. Thank you so much for all your hard work and dedication. We so appreciate it. So let's talk a little bit, while my judges are still back there working, let's talk a little bit about high school. Let's talk a little bit, first of all, about speech at the middle school level. So these young people are learning such a wonderful art form. And this art form doesn't stop here, but it goes on or continues through high school. And so on any given Saturday morning between September and concluding in June, you'll see groups of students boarding buses in the morning, anywhere from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. They'll all be dressed basically in black or dark navy or navy blue suits and ties. And those are the young people with file cases and briefcases. And you may think they're going to a funeral, but no, they're going to a high school speech tournament. And these tournaments last, they'll leave at 6 a.m. in the morning and they'll return at 6 p.m. in the evening many times. And it is the longest season that any group in the community schools has. Everyone knows that those speech competitors have that season. And so I'm hopeful that these young people, because of the expertise that we're seeing today, the wonderful work that you coaches have done, that they will indeed, once they're in high school, join the high school speech and debate team. They definitely have the skills, and you can see that they have the personalities to do that. And of course, all of you, we're our parents. There's a parent here for each one. Would you please stand up? Let's applaud our parents. Thank you so much. We're applauding you for two reasons. First of all, you've heard that the speech from your young person probably several hundred times. So thank you for doing that and for being so encouraging. And thank you that when they were in kindergarten, you didn't tell them they talked too much, because see how this is paying off now that they're being so successful. and we hope that you will also encourage them to participate in high school speech tournament. And now it's time for our fourth competitor, who will speak to us on the topic, global warming, the need for change.
What are we going to say when our future children ask us what a polar bear was? Well, we can say that they're a bear with white fur that ate fish. We can say they lived in a place called Antarctica, but the name Antarctica would probably just confuse them more. Could we tell them that we burn oil and coal that came from dinosaurs, but that's an extinction for another day, and that by burning these fossil fuels, the world got hotter and hotter, till slowly we kicked them out of their own home? But why? Why did we do it? Why are we doing it? It's cheap and easy. Do we value that over Earth itself? What about solar panels and wind turbines? Do they not meet our greedy needs? Are they too complicated? Too expensive? Can we even buy Earth back with them? So killing Earth is cheap and easy, that we're proving. Can we even trust humanity with Earth? We think we're so advanced with our electricity and skyscrapers, yet can't seem to understand that greenhouse gases and global warming are real problems. Plastic takes fossil fuels to make, so we're killing Earth. Okay. Plastic keeps piling up, which takes fossil fuels to make, so we're killing Earth 2 ways at a time. Where's our golden star? Projections estimate that if we don't change our course on global warming, our global GDP would be lower than it would be without climate change, says Wallace Wallace, author of The Uninhabitable Earth, a book which main idea focuses on what will happen if we continue our ways. With me bringing gross domestic product into it, are you listening? Let's focus on the morals of us humans. All we really care about is money. We've chosen paper to rule our world. Some may say, our former President Donald Trump, for example, that climate change is just some big expensive hoax. But when saying that, you are only bringing money back into it. Are we truly that simple? As an old Indian proverb once said, only when the last tree has died and the last river has been poisoned and the last fish has been caught will we realize we can't eat money. Think about all the trash you make in a day. Where does it go? It piles up in landfills, and some of it might not even make it to the trash can. There are better ways to go about life, better ways to go about trash, better ways to go about energy, and yet we are choosing the ones that kill. You think explaining what a polar bear is will hurt. Imagine having to explain a tree to a child. Imagine trees being a thing of the past. It's not like there are these big things growing out of the ground that just suck up all the carbon dioxide and release oxygen. Oh, wait. They're called trees, and every day we cut down 2 million of them. In the short time we humans have been here, we've affected all other life on Earth. We were given Earth by chance, and we have chosen to destroy it. Earth can't handle what we're doing to it. The warnings about global warming have been here for a long time. We are facing a global climate crisis. It is deepening. We are entering a period of consequences, says Al Gore, former vice president and winner of a Nobel Peace Prize. We are killing the Earth we live on. Are we going to fly to Mars when Earth is dead? So what? We can destroy that planet too? So no more plan B. Stop thinking so much about what lines your pockets and wake up and realize the world needs changing if we want humanity to last. So go outside, plant a tree, pick up some trash, go compost that banana peel, reduce, reuse, recycle. Be the solution, not the problem. So there is no what was, but only what is, as there should be here on Earth. Thank you.
Another provocative subject, and thank you so much. So all of us have heard some great speeches in our lifetime, and so I'm just going to see if you remember some of these lines and where some of these great speeches have come from. Here's the first one. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do something, not even me. You gotta dream, you gotta protect it. When people say you can't do something, they're gonna tell you, you tell them that you will. You want something, you go get it, period. From a movie called Pursuit of Happiness, of course. Here's one for you. Hey, Jules, Michael's chasing Kimmy. You're chasing Michael. Who's chasing you? Nobody? Get it. Famous speech from My Best Friend's Wedding. You said, I thought this was going to be academic. No, we've already done that. The young people are doing that. You and I can just have fun. There's an awful lot you can tell about a person by their shoes. And the other one, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Of course, Forrest Gump, right? And that wonderful movie. So remember, with all of these young people you're looking at today, you know that our speech competitors from Fort Wayne Community Schools have gone up into every profession in life. We have a lot of attorneys who started out in our speech contest, and we even have some movie stars from Fort Wayne who started out as speech contestants. So with that having been said, we're going to go to our next contestant, who is going to talk to us on switching to alternative energy.
We use a plethora of fossil fuels. According to the EPA, the U.S. alone uses 19.88 million barrels of petroleum daily. All of this has a severe impact on the environment. In 2014, the U.S. released 6,870 metric tons of greenhouse gases. Also in 2014, the national average temperature of the U.S. rose by 0.2 degrees Fahrenheit. So all of this brings up an important question. What will we do when the Earth runs out of fossil fuels? We need to switch to alternative energy. These sources of energy are more sustainable than fossil fuels. They come in a variety for every environment, and they're much better for the Earth than fossil fuels are. Alternative energy will help save our planet. First of all, alternative energy is much more sustainable than fossil fuels are. According to conserveenergyfuture.com, all sources of renewable energy such as solar, wind, geothermal, hydropower, wave, and tidal power are forms of sustainable energy. They've been here for centuries and are here to stay till life is available on Earth. Alternative energy sources have always been around, and they will always be around. That means that humanity can continue to survive off of them forever. The same site also states, it may one day be possible that the world can run on renewable energy alone, as some nations have tested such experiments. Whole countries have been able to run on solely alternative energy before, so why can't the rest of the world? Alternative fuels are plentiful enough to sustain our planet. Also, alternative energy comes in a variety for every environment. According to the National Resource Defense Council, the expansion in renewables is happening at scales large and small, from rooftop solar panels that can sell power back to the grid to giant offshore wind farms. One type of alternative energy may work very well in one area, but it might not work the best in another. However, there will always be other options for that area to have a clean, sustainable source of energy. Also, the U.S. Energy Information Administration says conventional hydropower uses water in dams or flowing in rivers and streams to spin a turbine and generate electricity. Pumped storage systems use and generate electricity by moving water between two reservoirs at different levels. We can get clean energy naturally and artificially. This gives us even more options. Finally, alternative energy is much better for the environment than fossil fuels are. IGS Energy expresses, acquiring and using renewable energy creates far less greenhouse gases that contribute to climate change. These sources of energy have little to no impact on the environment. They're very clean when you compare them to other sources of energy. IGS Energy also says, by lessening our dependence on fossil fuels, we can cut down on harmful processes like strip mining and oil drilling. To obtain fossil fuels, harmful methods must be used. By switching to alternative energy, countries can help save habitats and the atmosphere of the Earth. Some people argue that alternative energy is too expensive. However, these sources only require one-time purchases, as well as minor things like repair and storage. Fossil fuels must be bought over and over again, along with expensive mining techniques. It will also cost extra money to fix the damages that are caused, like global warming. Overall, using alternative energy will be much cheaper than continuing to use fossil fuels will be. In conclusion, we need to switch to alternative energy. These sources are more sustainable than fossil fuels are. They come in a variety for every environment, and they're much better for the Earth than fossil fuels. We are running out of fossil fuels quickly. We mine and destroy the surface of the Earth as well as the atmosphere. The continuation of all life on Earth depends on us. So what will we do when the Earth runs out of fossil fuels? We should switch to alternative energy so that we never have to find out. Thank you.
So what are our judges doing? Those of you who are coaches know, and those of you who are parents know, but maybe the people who are looking in don't know. Our judges at the back are listening to our students. They're making sure that that introduction, we call it in speech, has a hook. In other words, it grabs their attention. It makes them want to listen to the speech. A lot of times you and I'll be having a conversation with someone and their conversation has no hook to it, right? And we say that's boring. And so our students have learned that you have to grab the attention of your audience from the very beginning. And then our judges are making sure that our students, when they have their arguments selected, and they have, that they're able to support those arguments. And so they're seeing how well they support it. Does the support, where did they get the support from? Did they get it all from Wikipedia? So they are, where did they? Is it a substantial place where they received these arguments? And they're looking at their poise. They're looking at, how they use their gestures, how they use their bodies, if they seem comfortable when they're up here talking with us. They're also looking at listening to pronunciation and enunciation. Can you understand what they're saying? Which is why they're unmasked. So that makes that a lot easier. And then I want you to listen for this, because at the very end, you'll hear them say, and in conclusion, because we all know, how many of you have kids, right? So if you do, at the very end, right, when you're taking them somewhere, dropping them off at school or at someone's house, you always give them an in conclusion. That's the last thing you say, and it's the most important. And so our students are bringing it all together today with in conclusion. And our judges are taking notice of all of those things and assigning points. With that having been said, it's time for our next speaker on safety pins and how we underestimate them. I'm interested in all of these, and particularly this one.
Before the 19th century, there were numerous ineffective methods used to fasten clothing. First, there was an item called the fibula, and later the brooch. However, these items were often dangerous and expensive. Brooches and fibula had sharp points sticking out, scratching and scraping the wearer. Both were made out of bronze, silver, or gold, making them very expensive. Then, in 1849, Walter Hunt patented the safety pin, an invention we use to this very day. The safety pin fixes the danger of the pointed end by making a nest for the point. Even the first safety pins were made out of copper, so they were much less expensive. In an article from fashionhistory.lovetoknow.com, the inventor of the safety pin claimed durability, beauty, convenience, and injury protection in that order. I think the safety pin is one of the world's most used and convenient inventions because of its safety and value. Living up to their names, safety pins are completely harmless. Before the ever-great safety pin, there were fibula and brooches. A diagram of one of the fibula's earliest designs, provided by Pin Museum, shows two different pins. One had a hole on the tip, and the other formed an arc. The latter fit into the former and rested neatly inside. The problem was that since there was no protection from the point, the fibula would often scratch or stab the wearer. Another popular way to fasten clothing was brooches. Avalea.com, a website dedicated to the correct way to wear jewelry, defines the brooch as a fashion decorative accessory that usually attaches to clothes with a rotating pin clasp. Due to the fact that brooches had nothing for the point to nest into, they suffered the same problem as the fibula. Now, both the brooch and the fibula had many great qualities, but they shared the same large flaw of the absent protection from the pin's tip. Because people didn't understand infection as well back then, the danger of being pricked was more of an issue. Walter Hunt's invention of the safety pin remedied that flaw with a genius idea. It's doubly surprising when you realize that Walter only invented the pin to pay off a debt to a friend. The way the safety pin works is ingenious. A special pocket hides the sharp point so that when it's closed, it's completely, safe. This eliminated the problems that old clasps had with their points. So, if you were using an old clasp, being pricked with a needle all the time was irritating at best. But, however, there was an even bigger problem with these old clasps. These hurt people in a different way. Their wallets. For decades, fibula and brooches were made from expensive materials such as bronze, silver, and gold. You may make the connection that these clasps were made out of the same materials we make Olympic medals out of in modern times. This demonstrates the wealth of the wearers. And although the fibula and brooches were often beautiful pieces of jewelry, they were obviously very expensive and unattainable to the middle class. This wasn't a problem for the wealthy, but as we know, the wealthy aren't the only ones who need to clasp clothing. Unfortunately, fibula and brooches were made quite exclusive, posing a problem for the more impecunious among society. A less expensive option like the safety pin, which was made out of copper at the time, solved this issue. While they weren't as pretty, they were safer, more functional, and more affordable. You may dismiss the safety pin as an unnecessary and unimportant object, but I'm here to finally step up and advocate for this long, underappreciated, and overlooked item of importance that we rely on to this very day. When you think about it, it's glaringly obvious how much the safety pin has become an essential invention. We look to the safety pin to protect our newborns, utilize it to fit the costumes of our children in their school plays, depend on it to make their clothes fit, and to use it as jewelry and undoubtedly as lockpicks. But most importantly, we have proven the safety and value of this essential invention. Once again quoting theatlantic.com, the safety pin's life has been long but mostly modest. For more than a century, it has retained its original purpose, fastening pieces of fabric and items of clothing together. And yes, it has. The safety pin, while maybe not the grandest or most groundbreaking invention, has helped everyone from fashion designers to struggling parents for over 100 years. I think the safety pin is one of the world's most used and convenient inventions because of its safety and value. We've all used safety pins before, and they've always been there for us. It's time to be there for them. Don't take these words lightly. We could all use a bit more safety in our lives. Thank you.
Well, I've never heard anyone advocate for a safety pin before, but I'm telling you, but very well done, as are all the speeches. Thank you so much. So, some of the speeches that we've heard have come from our presidents. So let's just go back in time a little bit and listen to some that I think are kind of noteworthy. So here's one from Andrew Jackson. Any man worth his salt will stick up for what he believes in, but it takes a slightly better man to acknowledge instantly and without reservation that he is wrong. Yeah, that one kind of has a little bite there. Here's one from William Henry Harrison. There is nothing more corrupting, nothing more destructive of the noblest and finest feeling of our nature than having unlimited power. Right. And here's one from Theodore Roosevelt. It's hard to fail, but it is worse never to have tried to succeed. In this life, we get nothing except by effort. And one from President Nixon. A man is not finished when he's defeated. He is finished when he quits. And I love this one from Barack Obama. If you're walking down the right path and you're willing to keep walking, eventually you'll make progress. I like that because I know that these young people today are walking down the right path, and they are definitely going to show that success that we all want for their lives. And it seems that our judges are ready, so I will call on our next contestant, who is going to speak to us on in-person learning is better than virtual.
Learning in school is as easy as pie compared to learning online. A majority of teens say online learning is worse than in person, but only 19% think school should return to full in-person instruction. Due to COVID-19, many students are learning from home completely. In-person learning is better because attendance is better, it is easier to engage, and some classes cannot be taught online as well. The first reason why in-person learning is better than online learning is attendance is better when in person. According to records from Portage Middle School, Michael Krishner, the principal, explained that 83% of blended learning students are marked present 80% or more of the time, compared to just 63% of online learning students that are marked present 80% or more of the time. That means when students are blended or in person, the attendance is much better than if students were to be completely online. Students are normally not well organized, self-motivated, and do not have time management skills in order to keep up the course. So when students go to school, they learn all of those skills that are harder to learn while at home. The second reason why in-person learning is better than online learning is it is easier to engage in person. A student from the article, The Science of Keeping Students Engaged, stated, without the ambient social interactions that are such a rich part of a regular day at school, and without guidance from teachers, coaches, and counselors, many of the key motivational drivers were suddenly gone. While in person, students have a teacher there to help them stay focused, but while online, they can become distracted very easily. There can also be many distractions at home, like siblings yelling or moms making breakfast. It is also very easy to become distracted when everyone around them is working on something different, unlike when students are at school and everyone is working on the same thing. The last reason why in-person learning is better than online learning is some classes cannot be taught as well online as in-person classes can. Brian Smith, a professor at Southern Illinois University, said, "Some courses, like larger lectures, can transfer online with relatively few hiccups, but others don't translate so well because they are designed to be hands-on. Some classes, like chemistry, are easier to learn and to teach when they are hands-on, but students don't get that experience when they are online. For many students, they need that hands-on experience to excel, and if they don't get that experience, they might not understand the topic as well." Some people may say that online learning is the same as just doing everything online, but it's really not the same. While students are in school, they have more fun and may even pay attention more. But while students are online 100% of the time, they can become annoyed, waking up to sit on a computer for 8 hours a day instead of going to school and interacting with their teachers, friends, and classmates. In-person learning is better because attendance is better, it is easier to engage in person, and classes need to be taught face-to-face. School officials and parents should ensure that students get that good hands-on experience in a classroom with a teacher instead of missing out on everything while doing online learning. Thank you.
So it'd be interesting to take a vote among the teachers and see which one they prefer. Maybe we should do that. Well, let's talk about middle school, because today we're here with middle school students. There's some harebrained kind of information out there that middle school teachers are like the leftovers, that we're the ones who really wanted to teach high school, but we weren't good enough, and so they just sort of put us in middle school. Well, that's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, because the best is always in the middle. The best people have to be there in the middle. So let's, just thinking about some middle school memories. Where else would you have all of the variety that you have in middle school? You know, Forrest Gump's famous little quote about life is like a box of chocolates. You never know which one you're going to get. Well, a middle school day is like a box of chocolates. You never know what kind of day you're going to get. And so having said that, I was thinking about one day I arrived at school and there was a group of students, right, all together. And everyone knows if you teach middle school, when you see a group of kids piled together, you need to get over there and find out what's going on. Well, it was right after Christmas and right after Thanksgiving, and everyone had been watching The Christmas Story. How many of you are familiar with that, with Ralphie? And so someone dared this student to stick his tongue to the pole, and that's what he did. And so when I arrived, this kid had his tongue stuck to the pole and he could not get it off. And so, you know, I had to go to my classroom, and I don't remember all the details, but I think a custodian had to go out and whatever. But for days afterwards, this kid was taking people out to look and see that some of his cells were on that pole. And it gave him a lot of prestige. Where else but in middle school would you have something like that happen? So, so the best happens in the middle. And right now we're going to give you another of these excellent speakers who's going to speak to us on women in history.
George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson. In school, when you learned about the American Revolution, these were the names that you heard over and over again. But what about Sybil Ludington? Have you ever heard of her? How about in World War II? I'm sure you've all heard of Dwight Eisenhower, but have you ever heard of Ruby Bradley? I don't think so. This is a problem. Women gave huge contributions to American history, and many are never given any credit for their accomplishments. It's time that we learn more about women and their accomplishments in our history books. During the Revolutionary War, there were many women who worked as nurses, who mended clothes, and who cooked food, but many times we are told that that is all they did. Well, what about the ones who were spies, or the ones who literally fought on the battlefield? One woman in the Revolutionary War was Sybil Ludington. Sybil Ludington was a New York teenager. only about 14 at the time, who was basically the female equivalent of Paul Revere, except she rode twice as far in the pouring rain. Her ride was approximately 40 miles long, taking her through Putnam and Dutchess counties, New York, where she aroused a local militia to fight against British forces attacking in Danbury, Connecticut. Sybil gave a huge contribution to American history, and without her, Connecticut could very well be eating crisps instead of chips and being paid in pounds instead of dollars. There were also many women who gave irreplaceable contributions to World War II. One such woman was Ruby Bradley. Ruby Bradley was an Army surgical nurse during World War II and was working as a hospital administrator at Camp John Hay in the Philippines when she was taken prisoner by the Japanese forces only 3 weeks after the attack on Pearl Harbor. She was eventually interned at the Santo Tomas internment camp in Manila. While there, she gave aid to those who needed it and smuggled food into the camp. And she often went hungry so that others wouldn't. She got so thin that she was able to smuggle outdated medical equipment into the camp underneath her clothes without being noticed. During her 37 months as a prisoner of war, she performed 230 major surgeries and delivered 13 babies. This woman was irreplaceable in World War II. And without her, World War II could have gone in a very different direction, and the lives of many of those prisoners would have been lost. In an age of conflicting media and views of femininity, women, girls, and teens need these strong role models more than ever. An article published in The Atlantic stated that a study was done about the self-esteem in girls. Quote, "From girls 12 and under, we heard things such as, 'I make friends really easily. I can go up to anyone and start a conversation.' And 'I love writing poetry, and I don't care if anyone thinks it's good or bad.' From girls a year or more into their teens, we heard things such as, 'Everyone is so smart and pretty, and I feel like I'm just this ugly girl without friends. And I feel like if I showed my true self, nobody would like me.'" End quote. These strong role models could give girls the confidence that they're looking for. When girls have role models who are strong and confident in their beliefs, those girls become women who are strong and confident in their beliefs. Another very important reason to be teaching about women in our history in our classes is so that we raise men who know that women are equal to them. When we are only teaching our boys about strong men, our boys only believe that there are strong men. Teaching our boys about strong women will help them know that they are equal. A study done by planusa.org said that girls are much more likely than boys to perceive sexism as a big problem. 51% of girls ages 14 to 19 versus only 19% of boys ages 14 to 19. Girls ages 14 to 19 are also much more likely than adult voters to perceive sexism as a big problem. Teaching our boys and young men about women in American history is very important. Let's make the next generation an equal one. Teaching about women's history in our classes is extremely important for the upbringing of our young girls. Strong women who make strong role models, and strong role models make more strong women. Strong women become athletes, doctors, politicians, teachers, artists. They become the bedrocks of our nation. In other words, teaching women's history is building America's future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, Vice President Kamala Harris said this, quote, "What I want young women and girls to know is you are powerful and your voice matters. You're going to walk into many rooms in your life and career, and you may be the only one in that room who looks like you, and you may be the only one who's had the experiences that you have lived. You remember when you're in that room that you are not alone. You have hundreds, thousands, millions of women who've gone before you who are there with you. So open your mouth, speak powerfully, speak with intelligence, and change the world. So let's talk about the wonderful women in middle school teachers. We're talking about how wonderful middle school teachers are. So here's a little story that I remember from a friend who was speeding on her way to school one day and was stopped by a police officer. And there's a police officer, I don't know if you've ever been stopped by them, many times I have, and they're always, where are you going in such a hurry, right? And so she said, I'm going to school, I'm a school teacher. And he said, oh, really? Where do you teach? And so she gave the name of this middle school. And the officer looked at her, and he put the pen down, and he put his book down, his little pad down, and he said, you know what? You have enough torture every day. I don't need to torture you more. And so she didn't get a speeding ticket. I'm tempted to try that sometime, and maybe I will. But again, it's the perk of being a middle school teacher. So bravo to all of us who are middle school teachers, who've been middle school teachers, and who will be middle school teachers. And now our last speaker, who will speak on ending global poverty. The time is now.
Bill Gates once said, I believe that if you show people the problems and you show them the solutions, they'll be moved to act. In a statement from BordenProject.org, nearly 22,000 children die each day due to living in poverty. Poverty, the state of being extremely poor, is affecting many parts of the world. It leaves children and families struggling to have food and shelter. Poverty is the biggest world problem right now because it is far too common around the world, it ruins cities and countries, and is greatly affecting our future generations. First off, poverty is too common around the world. An article from worldbank.org, at higher poverty lines, 24% of the world lived on less than $3.20 a day, and 43% of the world lived on less than $5.50 a day in 2017. This means that over 40% of the world lived on less than $5.50 a day. According to worldvision.org, due to the effects of COVID, the World Bank estimates an additional 88 million to 115 million people will fall into extreme poverty in 2021. This means that due to recent events, job loss, layoffs, and sicknesses, poverty will become even more common in the future. These numbers should put the poverty crisis at the top of our list of problems that must be solved. We need to change the direction of poverty from very common to non-existent. Another reason is poverty can ruin cities and countries. In an article from worldbank.org, at higher poverty line, more than 40% of the global poor are affected by fragility, conflict, and violence. And that number is expected to rise to 67% in the next decade. Those economies hold 10% of the world's population. Additionally, neighborhoods with the highest amount of poor people tend to have worse schools, fewer businesses, and more violence. In a 2021 CBS News article, 3 out of 10 small businesses in the U.S. say they likely won't survive 2021 without additional government support during the coronavirus pandemic. Considering there are roughly 30 million small businesses in the U.S., 9 million small firms are at risk of closing for good this year. Finally, children raised in poverty get very little to no education. In an article from worldbank.org, it states half of the people in poverty are children. 70% of the global poor, aged 15 and over, have no schooling or only some basic education. Childfund.org states that 30% of children raised in poverty won't finish high school. Childfund.org also states that children from lower income families are more likely than children from wealthier backgrounds to have lower test scores and are at higher risk of dropping out of school. Because of poverty, our youth, our future, won't get the education they need to sustain their own futures with decent jobs and wages. Some people may say that poverty is too expensive to solve, but this is not true. In an article from worldvision.org, Jeffrey Sachs, one of the world's leading experts in economic development and the fight against poverty, stated that to end poverty, it would cost $175 billion per year for 20 years. This is less than 1% of the combined income of the richest countries, and it's only 4 times the amount of the United States military budget for 1 year. So to end poverty, it would cost less than 1% of the combined income of the richest countries per year for 20 years. Poverty is not as expensive as people think. In conclusion, poverty is the biggest world problem right now because it is far too common around the world, it ruins cities and countries, and is greatly affecting our future generations. In an article from worldvision.org, the COVID-19 pandemic threatens to reverse decades of progress lost in the fight against global poverty, income inequalities, and jeopardizes future generations of children. It will keep getting worse unless we do something about it. So what can we do? There are many organizations dedicated to ending world poverty. One great place for young people is DoSomething.org, a global movement of millions of young people making a positive change. There's no better time than now to help. Nelson Mandela, former president of South Africa, once said, "Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity. It is the protection of a fundamental human right, the right to dignity and a decent life." Thank you.
Thank you. So thoughtful. So this afternoon, you've been able to see why those of us who teach middle school do it. We have the best stories, we have the best days, we have the best students. And you've seen an example of those today. I want all of you please to stand, all of the students, before our judges make their decisions, and I want us to give them another hand. And now we're going to have a short recess while our judges collaborate. And Mrs. Kristen?
It's changing this year. Usually we have cookies and punch for the contestants and the parents and the coaches while the judges deliberate, but because of COVID, how many times have we said that this year? Because of COVID, we can't do that. So we're going to take the judges out to decide who our top 3 are. Contestants, you can go back to your people, hang out for a little bit in here, and we'll be back in about 5 minutes or so. Thank you.
come back into their seats. It's an exciting time. So once again, let's thank them once more. School year's almost ended. And I know the coaches and teachers, especially middle school teachers, are thinking about next week when you're going to have to say goodbye to these wonderful young people. And I know as those the buses leave and you're saying those final goodbyes and be good and obey your parents and be safe, that a part of our hearts, the hearts of the teachers, go with the kids. So I'm hoping that if there are any 8th graders up here, that they'll stay in contact with you, and so we'll be able to see them as they progress through their high school years and young adulthood. With that having been said, it is drum roll, please, for someone. Okay. So we announce we're going to start with the individuals who are like runner-ups, but the people who are second and first runner-up, and then the champion, those will be announced at the very end. Okay. So let's start, first of all, with our wonderful speaker, number 1 on gender dysphoria from Miami Middle School. Is it Lucia? Lucia? Okay, come and pronounce it then, right? So I don't.
Lucia Rippey.
Lucia Rippey. And Coach Kimberly Roebuck, okay? Where's the coach? Thank you. Thank you so much. And now, speaker number 3, Cell Phone Revolution. Can you hear me now? From Kikianga. And you're going to come and say your name too?
America Gamis.
Good. With Coach Kristen Pearl. And now, speaker number 5, Global Warming, the Need for Change, from Lane Middle School.
Lucy Fettersfield.
Yes, thank you. Okay, yes. This is the safest way to do it, right? And speaker number 7, safety pins and how we underestimate them, from Tolles Middle School.
Is it on, Spradlin?
I never would have done that. Okay, and what? Thank you. And speaker, Women in History, from Lakeside Middle School.
Elizabeth Stahosky.
Thank you, her hand. And our last speaker, Ending Global Poverty, the Time Is Now, from Northwood Middle School.
Ryan Boyce.
Thank you. Now, our second runner-up for today's competition, with the speech, In-Person Learning is Better Than Virtual, from Portage Middle School.
Jordan Hughes.
Congratulations. Our first runner-up, Legal Voting Age, Memorial Park.
Sophia Drake.
And that means that our champion this year comes from Blackhawk Middle School, switching to alternative energy.
Ophelia Isaac.
Thank you so much to Mrs. Kristen, who so faithfully does this every year. I hope that your career will be even longer than Dr. Betty Stein's, and she was doing this when she was 100 years old. I think she did her last speech tournament. And so we're so grateful to you. Let's give her a hand. And this concludes our contest for this year. Thank you so much for attending.